Hey everybody, this is going to be our sixth and final lecture of Module 1, Part 1 for Analytics for Business and Economics. And in this one, we're going to talk about vectors and other variables. So we've talked about data frames, we've talked about how to use the assignment operator to store values inside of a variable. And variable is just going to be a box that we have a name. Well, we're going to talk about different types of variables and how we build those different types of variables. Okay, so without any further ado, we'll dive right in. So let's start off talking about what is a vector and how do we make one and what do we want to do with it? Well, first of all, in mathematics, a vector is this kind of list of numbers, right? It could be either a row vector, so all in a row, or a column vector, all in a column. If we have multiple dimensional vectors, those aren't vectors, those are called matrices. But the idea is we have a list of numbers put together and we give some meaning to that. In R, we mean something a little bit different when we say a vector. A vector is a list of data that's all of one type. So I could have a numeric vector. For example, my vector right down here, I'll highlight that, is just a vector of numbers. It's called a numeric vector. I could also have a vector of characters. Now, notice I'm being really careful not to use the word list. And you might say, well, it's just a list of numbers. And actually, yes, that's correct. It is, but it's also a little misleading because there's actually a data structure inside of R called a list, which is a lot like a vector. It's just each element can be a different data type. So I could have a list that has a number, some text, a data frame, and all kinds of things in a list. But if it's not a vector in R, because a vector, everything has the same type. So it's the same type of data. So it's numeric data or logical data or character data. All right, and so let's have a little bit of a look at that. Let's start by saying, okay, first of all, how do we make a vector? So let's just look at this command right here, my vector, and how we're getting at it. So I'm going to come right over here to my console in RStudio, and I'm going to type in my underscore vector. All right, and that's just going to give me a name for it. That's the name of the box I'm going to put this in. The next thing I'm going to use, and this is a function you use over and over and over again in R, is the C, or the combine function. And the combine function just does a whole bunch of things. I don't even want to get into how it figures out how to do it, but basically it puts things together. And in this case, we're going to put together a numeric vector. And so we'll do here 3, comma 5, comma 7, comma 9. And so that C function, or that combine function, will combine those together into a vector. So let's put that in there, and we can come over here and look at our environment, and we can see it's a value, my vector. It's a numeric vector because you can see it says num right here. And then it says 1 to 4. That tells me I have 4 elements in it. That's the addressing of the vector. And it's 1, 2, 3. There are the elements. All right, when it's small like this, you can see it all over here in the global environment. I can also do something like just say my underscore vector. And notice it's in memory, so it gives me code completion and pops it up. So I'm just going to hit return on a Mac or enter on a PC, and it's going to fill that in for me. And then let's run that line of code, and poof, 3579. There we go. It's first row, boom. Okay. So that's what this little bracket 1 indicates, that it's either a row vector or a column vector. It doesn't really matter either way you want to think about it, but that's that one, or the first element is 3. All right, so really it has 1 row with 3, a 5, a 7, and a 9 in it. Okay, so there's our vector, bing. We use this combine function. Now we can also do a little deeper look at that using the structure command, or str. Tells us what type this variable is. So I'll do my underscore vector. We can run that, And there it tells me it's a numeric vector with 1 to 4 elements, and there are the elements. Okay. Not that that's hugely useful, but yeah, I guess you can see it. All right, so there's our first vector. Hey, yay. Well, what about storing text? Well, guess what? We can make a character vector. Here we have a character vector. We'll call this my character vector, and I'm going to copy and paste because I'm lazy. And I'm just going to name it my character vector. And it's a character vector because these are all, I will call these strings a lot. That's a computer science term. It's when you have text, that's a string. So you might get used to using that term in Excel. It's always referred to as text. In R, these are referred to as characters, which is a really, really weird name because there's more than one character there, but oh well. But I've got apple, banana, cherry. Those are all text written out in my combine function. And if I go ahead and hit return, I notice I have right up here my character vec. It says it's a CHR is the data type or character, and there's 3 elements in there. And those are the most of the 3 elements. It's not going to give you all of them because it's a little bit longer. I can also, I'm going to copy that and just paste it right down here because I don't want to type the whole thing out again. Run that and poof, it gives me my character vector back. All right, easy peasy. Now, the thing is, a vector has to be all the same type. What if I mix them? All right, so let's just do my, oops. Oh, I screwed up. There's no object named my, oh well. My mixed type. Let's try this. So what we'll do is, we'll do C, and let's put in apple, banana. And then we'll put in a 3. See what happens. Bing, okay. My vector, so my mixed vector is a character vector, and it converted the 3, converted that to a string. All right, vectors have to be all the same type, and it's gonna do its best to make it work. All right, so yeah, don't do that. This last line, this my mixed type, and put that in there. That's gonna give you weird results. That's a good way to build bugs into your code. You don't want to use that one. There's other ways where we can make a list of items that are of different types. Okay, storing true-false data. All right, so first of all, there's a few values in R that are special. There's the value NA. NA it means non-applicable. What it really means is we use that to mean a missing observation. All right, there's also, I believe, not a number. All right, that's when you get when you try to, I don't know, divide by 0 or something like that. You get weird results. There's INF. No, I'm sorry. INF capitalized. Oops, that didn't work. INF. All right, that's just a number, means infinity. You can also do negative infinity. But two that are really important to us that we'll use a lot are true and false. Now note, it's case sensitive. See, it wants to tell me, are you sure you don't want it capitalized? I'm going to say, no, I don't. And say object not found. Why? Because, well, it's not capitalized. You can also use a capital T or a capital F. Those are also true and false. But if I want to do my logical vector, I can do the same kind of thing. All right, and I can mix spelled out and not spelled out. I could do that. And let's go up here. My logical vector, it says it's logical, true, false, true. Easy peasy. But what would happen if I did this? True, 3, true. All right, so let's run this. And all of a sudden, poof, I get a numeric vector where the trues are converted to ones and the 3 is a 3. So you want to be really careful using this combined vector, this combined function, if you mix up the data types, because it's just going to give you inconsistent results. All right, you may get unexpected results, and that's not really what you want. So, bing, that's how I make a logical vector. So since I have these vectors, then I want to index them. So let's talk about my vector again. I'm going to do my vector, and notice it gives me a list now of the variables in the global environment that have my in them. So I'm going to do my vector. Then I'm going to use a square bracket, and I'm going to say, oh, let's do the second. What's the second element of that? Well, if I come over here and I look at the elements, I know it's 3, 5, 7, 9. The first one's 3. The second one's 5. So this should be 5. And there it is. I don't know why it took so long, but oh well. All right, 5. And I could do the same thing. Say I wanted the first through the second. So I wanted the first and second. I could do 1 colon 2, and that's going to give me 1 to 2. Right? 3, 5. Or I could do, 1 to 3. 3, 5, 7. All right? So that's one way we can directly reference within a vector. So you can also use other vectors to reference inside of a vector. So let's look at this. So I have an index. So my indices are going to be 1 and 3 because I want the first and the third elements. All right, so let me go ahead and store that. And then let me go here. I'm going to do my vector. And in the square brackets, I'm going to put in INDI. There, it completes the typing for me. Then I'll run that and it gives me 3 and 7, which is the first, which is 3, right? And the third, which is 7. Say, why would I ever knew that? You'd be surprised. We can also do logical indexing. So how am I going to do that? Well, what if I decide to create this guy, a logical index? I want to know all the places where, so my vector, I want to know all the elements that are greater than 5. So I'm going to say my vector greater than 5. I'll store that in logical index. Let's print out logical index and see what that does. False, false, true, false, because 3 is not greater than 5. 5 is equal to 5, but it's not greater than 5. 7 is greater than 5. 9 is greater than 5. So false, false, true, true. I think I said that wrong a minute ago, but R got it right. Now I want it to return just those that are greater than 5. I can go ahead and put in, I'm just pushing the up button to get previous ones, previous entries. And then I'm just going to put logical. And there we go. I can use code completion to not have to type the whole thing. Run that, and I get 7 and 9 because it gives me 7 is greater than 5 and 9 is greater than 5. Some of these are really, really handy. The final thing that really comes in handy quite a lot is something called a named vector. So let's say I want to do something like this. All right, I've got my vector, I've got my combined function, but I want the first one to be called first, the second entry to be called second. Now, it's really, really important. Here, you have to use an equal sign here. If you use an assignment operator, it's just going to, I'm not sure what it's going to do, but it's not going to be good. All right, so you want to use equal signs there and put this first part in quotation marks because it's a name. And you name each one. And if I run that, then if I go ahead and do my vector to print it out, something really cool happens. boom, it gives you a vector, but it gives you the name of each one of these on top. It makes it a little more like a table. Right? And there you go. And when I have that, I can then reference individual values by name. Oops, I can't do that with a vector, so what do I have to do? I have to do it like this. Square bracket, F-I-R-S-T. See, there you go. Even the professor makes. Oops, what's wrong? I need quotation marks. There we go. Now I got it. All right. I needed quotation marks because I don't have a variable over here in the global environment called first that it knew to go find. So it needed to have quotation marks in there to know that I was referring to an element name. All right. And if I'd have just looked at my darn notes, I would have known that. Great. So that's a good introduction to vectors. And we will pick up our introduction to R and RStudio in the next module. That's module 1, part 2. And I will see you then.